The sun hung like a molten coin in the sky of Vexor Prime, baking the ochre dunes and the crooked stalls of the dust market into a shimmering haze, where the air tasted of salted spice and the metallic tang of alien engines. Among the thrumming stalls hawking bioluminescent fruit, crystalline waterskins, and mechanical scorpions that sold poetry in binary chirps, there stood a small, stubborn cart painted the faded blue of a forgotten Earth ocean. Its awning patched with scraps of thermal cloth, its sign, hand-lettered in 3 languages, reading simply, Jax's Raps. Jax was not his birth name. It was the sound the locals made when they tried to pronounce Jasper, which had been his father's name, and then his grandfather's, and now on this dusty, alien crossroads where humans were as rare as rain in a desert, it was the only thing left that felt like home. He was 24, lean from years of hauling ingredients under twin suns, his skin bronzed and cracked at the knuckles, his dark hair perpetually dusted with fine red sand, and his eyes, brown, tired, but still sharp, watched the crowd like a man who had learned long ago that survival was less about strength and more about knowing when to smile and when to step back. He made sandwiches. Not the kind you got from a replicator or a factory vat, but real ones. Crusty bread baked from imported wheat flour, slow-roasted beef jerky cured with earth spices he'd smuggled in a hollowed-out data crystal, pickled radishes from a hydroponic box he kept hidden behind his cart, and a smear of something called sun butter, a thick, nutty paste made from a desert tuber that tasted like caramel and regret. He didn't sell to the rich. He didn't sell to the military patrols who stomped through with armored boots and cold eyes. He sold to the tired, the forgotten, the ones who had walked for 3 days across the dunes to barter a single vial of glow moss for food. He sold to the children who peeked from behind their mother's legs, eyes wide with wonder at the strange, squishy things that smelled like heaven. And sometimes, when the sun dipped low and the market quieted into the hush before the night breezes came, he would sit on a crate, wipe his hands on his apron, and hum an old song his mother used to sing, something about fireflies and lullabies, and pretend, just for a moment, that he wasn't alone in a universe that didn't care whether he lived or vanished. That was the day she came. She was small, no taller than his waist, her skin a deep velvety purple that shimmered like oil on water under the twin suns. Her hair, long and fine as spun moon silk, was pure white, cascading down her back in loose waves that seemed to glow faintly, as if lit from within. She wore a tunic stitched from iridescent beetlewing fabric, too large for her, and sandals made of woven root fibers. Her eyes were large, round, and the color of liquid mercury. No pupils, no whites, just endless, reflective pools that held no malice, only curiosity. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, at the edge of his cart's shadow, watching him wrap a sandwich for an old Vexory trader with 3 arms and a cough that sounded like gravel in a tin can. When the man paid with a handful of polished obsidian shards, she stepped forward, her bare feet silent on the hot sand. "Any leftover sandwiches, human?" she asked. Her voice was high, clear, and strangely musical, like wind chimes made of glass. Jax paused. He had heard 1,000 variations of that question. "You mean scraps?" he'd say, and hand over a corner of bread with a little extra sun butter. "No," she said, as if sensing his thought before he formed it. "Leftover. Not broken. Not stale. Not given away." She tilted her head, and the light caught her hair, turning it into a halo of silver mist. "I heard you make them with heart." Jax blinked. No one had ever said that. Not in 3 years. Not even his mother, when she'd last hugged him before the ship left Earth. He looked at her, really looked. There was no hunger in her eyes, no desperation, just quiet certainty, like she knew something he didn't. He reached under the counter, past the thermos of spiced tea and the stack of napkins printed with cartoon stars, and pulled out the one he'd saved. It was the last one from the morning batch, the one he'd wrapped extra careful, the one with double the beef and the pickled radish sliced thin enough to see through, the one he'd meant to eat himself when the market closed, but hadn't. He didn't know why he'd kept it. Maybe because it was perfect. Maybe because it felt like a secret he wasn't ready to share. He held it out. She didn't take it. Instead, she reached up with both hands, not to grab, but to hover, and whispered something in a language that made the air between them ripple. The sandwich trembled. Not from wind, not from vibration, from recognition. The bread softened, the beef warmed, the sun butter glowed faintly gold, the pickled radish shimmered, and for a heartbeat, Jack swore he saw the ghost of a sunset inside it. The kind he used to watch from his backyard in Ohio, the sky bleeding orange and pink over cornfields. Then, with a breath that smelled faintly of ozone and jasmine, she took it. She didn't eat it. She held it to her chest, as if it were a child. "I am Lyra," she said. Jax swallowed. "Jax." She nodded, as if that explained everything. "You make things that remember." He didn't know what that meant, but he didn't ask. She turned and walked away, the white hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail, the sandwich cradled against her chest like a sacred relic. He watched until she vanished into the crowd of six-legged merchants and floating lanterns. He told himself it was just a weird kid, a trick of the heat, a hallucination from too many nights without sleep. He was wrong. 3 days later, she returned. This time, she was not alone. She stood at the edge of the market square, flanked by 2 towering figures clad in armor of living coral and silver filaments that pulsed like veins. Their skin was the same deep purple as hers, but older, harder. Their hair tied back in intricate knots that glowed faintly blue. Behind them stood a dozen more. Soldiers, priests, courtiers, their faces unreadable, their eyes fixed on Jax's cart as if it were a weapon. The market fell silent. Even the scorpion poets stopped chirping. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of ozone and something older, something that hummed beneath the skin. Jax's hands froze mid-rap. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared. Lyra stepped forward alone. She held the same sandwich. It was untouched, but now it was different. The bread was no longer bread. It was woven with threads of light. The beef shimmered with internal constellations. The sunbutter moved like liquid starlight. And the pickled radish? It pulsed, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. "I brought it back," she said. Jax's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because you made it," she answered, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. And only a human can make something that remembers the silence between heartbeats. Before he could respond, one of the armored figures stepped forward, his voice a grinding bass that vibrated in Jax's molars. "Princess Lyra of the Vathari court, daughter of the 7th son, has been missing for 17 cycles. She left the palace without escort, without warning, without permission. She wandered into your market." He spat the word like poison. "And now, she claims you are the source of the echo bread, a relic of the old earth, long thought destroyed, capable of restoring the memory of lost souls." Jax stared. "I made a sandwich." Lyra turned to him, her mercury eyes soft. "You made a sandwich that tasted like the last time your mother kissed you before you left." His breath stopped. "How?" "You did not know," she said gently, "that your mother's voice is stored in the rhythm of your hum. You did not know that the way you press the bread just a little too hard on the left side is how she used to press your forehead when you were afraid. You did not know that the sunbutter you use? It's made from the same tuber that grew outside your childhood home. You did not know that the radish you pickle? You cry when you slice it. And your tears, they change the flavor." Jax's vision blurred. He hadn't cried in years. Not since the ship left. Not since Earth became a memory no one else remembered. Lyra stepped closer. "We have searched for the echo bread for 3 centuries. It was said to be a gift from the first humans, who could infuse food with the essence of emotion, love, grief, joy, regret, so that those who ate it could feel the soul of the maker. It was outlawed, burned, forgotten. But you made it again, without knowing." The armored guard snarled. "She is a child. She is delusional. This human is a common vendor. He has no power, no lineage, no connection to the ancients." Lyra turned to him, slow, deliberate. "You think I came here because I was lost?" She raised her hand, and the sandwich floated. Not from technology, not from magic, from memory. The bread unfolded, revealing not layers of ingredients, but scenes. Jax's mother singing in the kitchen, her apron stained with flour, the radio crackling with static. Jax as a boy, laughing as he chased fireflies in the backyard. His father, silent, holding a sandwich just like this one, handing it to him on the day he boarded the ship. The loneliness of the long voyage. The first time he saw alien stars. The fear, the hope, the quiet, aching love for a world he could never return to. The crowd gasped. The guard stepped back. Lyra lowered her hand. The sandwich settled back into place. "I came," she whispered, "because I was lonely, and I found you, and you made me feel not alone." Jax's knees buckled. He sank onto his crate. He didn't cry. He couldn't. Not yet. But something inside him cracked open, like a seed splitting under pressure, and for the first time in years he felt seen. They took her back that night. Not by force. She walked with them, but not willingly. She looked back over her shoulder. Once, as the coral-armored procession vanished into the dunes. Her hair glowed brighter than ever, and in her hand, she held the sandwich, still whole, still glowing. Jax didn't sleep. He sat on his cart all night, staring at the stars, wondering if he'd imagined it all. He didn't sell sandwiches the next day. He didn't sell the day after. By the third day, the market whispered. Some said the princess had been cursed. Others said she'd been taken by a human sorcerer. One old trader swore he'd seen the sandwich glow in the dark, and that when he smelled it, he wept for his dead wife. On the fourth day, a ship descended. Not a patrol vessel. Not a trader freighter. It was sleek, obsidian, shaped like a coiled serpent, with no markings, no insignia of any known empire. It landed silently at the edge of the dunes, and from it stepped a woman, taller than the others, older. Her skin was the same violet, but faded at the edges, as if she'd been worn thin by time. Her hair was white, but threaded with silver, braided with tiny, glowing beads that chimed softly with every step. She wore a robe of woven starlight, and her eyes, mercury, like Lyra's, held the weight of galaxies. She walked straight to Jax's cart. He didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply reached into her robe and pulled out a small, smooth stone. It was warm, pulsed. She placed it on the counter. It was the same shape as the obsidian shards the traders used for currency. But this one had a face carved into it. His mother's face. Jax's breath left him. You made her remember, the woman said, her voice like wind over frozen glass. You made her remember her mother, the one who died when she was 5, the one who used to sing to her in the dark, just before the palace lights dimmed, the one who loved her even when the court said her heart was too soft for royalty. Jax's voice cracked. How? The woman looked at him. Not with anger, not with awe, but with something deeper. Grief, gratitude, recognition. We are the Vaetheri, she said. We are the last keepers of the memory weavers. We used to be the ones who infused food with soul. We were the ones who taught the first humans how to do it. But we lost the art. We forgot how to feel. We became rulers, judges, warriors. We stopped remembering what it meant to be touched by another's heart. And then, Lyra found you. A human. A sandwich maker. A man who never knew he was holding the key. She gestured to the stone. This is the last memory of her mother. We stole it from the Archive of Echoes when she was born. We thought it would protect her. But it only buried her. Until you made her taste love again. Through a sandwich. Jax looked at the stone. He touched it. And for the first time since he'd left Earth, he heard her voice. I'm proud of you, Jasper. He collapsed to his knees. The woman knelt beside him. The Emperor wants you dead. Jax looked up, stunned. Why? Because you are proof that emotion cannot be controlled. That love cannot be regulated. That a simple act, making a sandwich with care, can undo centuries of fear. The court fears what you are. They fear what you might become. If word spreads, if others learn to do what you do, the entire empire will remember how to feel. And then, they will stop obeying. Jax stood slowly. His hands were shaking. His voice was quiet. So what do I do? The woman smiled, just slightly. You run. He didn't run. He packed. He packed his cart, his spices, his thermos, his mother's old photo tucked in his jacket. He packed the stone. He packed the recipe for sun butter, written on a napkin in his own messy handwriting. He packed the last sandwich he'd made for Lyra, the one she'd left behind, now cold, now silent. He didn't say goodbye to the market. He didn't look back. He walked into the desert, and the ship followed. It didn't chase him. It didn't hunt. It simply appeared. Every night, at the edge of his campfire, always silent, always watching. He slept under stars, ate dried fruit, drank water from a canteen he'd salvaged from a ruined rover. He made sandwiches every day. Not for sale. Not for anyone. For himself. He made one with pickled radish and sun butter. He ate it. And for a moment, he felt his mother's hand on his shoulder. He wept. The ship appeared again that night. This time, the woman stepped out alone. You are not running, she said. I'm not going back, he replied. You don't have to. But you must understand. Lyra is not safe. The Emperor has declared her unfit to rule. She is to be taken to the hollow spire, where memories are erased. She will forget her mother. She will forget you. She will become a weapon. Jax looked at the stars. What do you want from me? I want you to come with me. To the spire. To save her. He turned to her. Why? Because you are the only one who can reach her. Because you made her remember. And now, she is remembering you. He didn't answer. He made another sandwich. He wrapped it carefully. He handed it to her. She took it. And for the first time, she wept. The hollow spire rose from the heart of the Vathari capital like a broken tooth of black crystal, piercing the sky, its surface etched with the names of millions. Those who had lost their memories, their emotions, their souls. It was not a prison. It was a temple, a place of purification, where the court cleansed the weak, the sentimental, the dangerous. Lyra was there. She sat in a chamber of liquid glass, her body suspended in a field of silver mist, her white hair floating as if underwater. Her eyes were closed. Her face was still. The emperor stood before her, his form wrapped in robes of woven shadow, his face hidden behind a mask of polished bone. She is the last of the heartborn, he said to his advisors. Her empathy is a disease. She weeps for the dying. She shares her rations with the poor. She speaks to the sand. She remembers the taste of a human sandwich. This is not royalty. This is chaos. Jax arrived at midnight. He did not come with weapons. He did not come with soldiers. He came with a cart. The same blue awning, the same sign, Jax's wraps. The guards tried to stop him. He didn't fight. He just held up the sandwich. It glowed. The entire spire trembled. The silver mist around Lyra surged. Her eyes opened, and she smiled. Jax. The emperor turned. His mask cracked. The guards raised their weapons. Jax walked forward, step by step, past the armored sentinels, past the silent scholars, past the weeping statues of those who had once loved and were now hollow. He reached the chamber. He placed the sandwich on the glass floor. Pulsed. It sang. It remembered. Lyra reached out. Her fingers brushed the bread. And the entire chamber exploded, not with fire, but with memory. Images flooded the air. Lyra's mother singing to her in the dark. Lyra hiding in the palace gardens, eating stolen fruit and whispering to the wind. Lyra running through the desert, barefoot, laughing, chasing a bird made of light. Lyra standing in the dust market, small, trembling, asking for a sandwich. Jax wrapping it with care. Jax humming. Jax crying when he thought no one was looking. The warmth of the sun butter. The crunch of the radish. The silence between heartbeats. The emperor screamed. He tried to shut it down. He pressed a button on his arm. The spire's cleansing field surged. It was meant to erase, but it didn't. It remembered. The memory of the sandwich was too strong, too real, too human. The field reversed. The mist turned golden. The walls of the spire began to crack. Not from force, but from feeling. The guards dropped their weapons. They wept. One remembered his daughter. Another remembered his first kiss. A scholar wept for the book he'd never finished. Lyra stood. Her hair blazed like a nova. She stepped out of the chamber, and she walked to Jax. She didn't speak. She kissed his forehead. And in that moment, the entire empire heard her voice. Not through sound, but through memory. I am not broken. I am not weak. I am the one who remembers. The emperor fell to his knees. His mask shattered. Beneath it was not a monster. Not a tyrant. Just a man. Old, tired, and weeping. I forgot, he whispered. I forgot what it meant to be loved. Jax didn't say anything. He just handed him the last sandwich. The emperor took it. He ate it. And for the first time in 30 years he laughed. The spire didn't fall. It bloomed. Its walls cracked open, and from within poured vines of living light, flowers that sang, rivers of warm honey that tasted of joy, and children, hundreds of them, running free, their eyes wide with wonder, their hands full of food they'd never tasted before. Lyra took Jax's hand. You have to go back, she said. He looked at her. Why? Because you are not just a sandwich maker. She smiled. You are the first memory weaver of the new age. He shook his head. I just made sandwiches. You made people remember how to feel. He looked at the crowd. Soldiers, scholars, merchants, children. All weeping, laughing, hugging, eating, remembering. He looked at the cart. He looked at the stars. He looked at her. And he knew. He couldn't go back. Not to earth. Not to silence. Not to loneliness. He took her hand. And together, they walked into the desert, not to escape, but to begin. The next morning, the market reopened. The same stalls. The same smells. But now there was a new cart. Blue awning. Hand-painted sign. Jack's and Lyra's embrace wraps. And on the counter, a single stone. Its surface shimmered. And if you pressed your palm to it, and closed your eyes, you could hear the voice of someone you loved. Someone you'd forgotten. Someone you'd been too afraid to miss. And you would cry. And you would eat. And you would remember. Jack's didn't sell sandwiches anymore. He sold moments. Lyra didn't rule. She remembered. And together, they walked from desert to desert, from marketplace to marketplace, from world to world, never staying long, never charging much, always leaving behind something warm, something real, something that tasted like love. And sometimes, when the twin suns dipped low, and the wind carried the scent of spice and starlight, you could hear him humming. And if you listened very, very closely, you could hear his mother singing back. Weeks melted into months, and Jack's and Lyra's cart became a legend whispered across the outer rim. A myth with pickles and bread. Their route was never fixed. They followed the scent of loneliness, the hum of forgotten joy, the quiet ache in eyes that had seen too much and remembered too little. They'd appear in a war-torn bazaar one solstice, vanish by the next, leaving behind not just full stomachs, but souls stitched back together with the thread of shared memory. Yet peace, even the fragile kind they offered between bites of sun butter and radish, never lasted long in the cosmos. It began with a rumor, not from gossiping traders or drunken mercenaries, but from the sand itself. On the planet Corvel, where dunes shifted like sleeping beasts, the desert started remembering. Old battlefields wept rust-colored tears. Ruined towers replayed the laughter of children long buried. Pilgrims came not for water or relics, but to press their ears to the ground and hear the voices of ancestors who had died screaming. At first, people thought it was a blessing, perhaps the work of Jack's and Lyra spreading beyond their cart. But then the memories turned violent. Shadows rose from the sand, not as ghosts, but as echo-soldiers. Spectral warriors clad in shattered armor, wielding weapons forged from grief and rage, attacking anyone who dared disturb their eternal rest. The Vathri High Court blamed Jax. Not the Emperor, the man who had wept over a sandwich, but a splinter faction calling themselves the Purifiers, led by a former royal archivist named Valen. Valen claimed that Jax hadn't healed memory. He'd unleashed it, like opening a dam of pain that should have stayed buried. Worse, they accused Lyra of complicity, of using her connection to Jax to amplify the Echobread's effect far beyond its intended purpose. She is not remembering, Valen declared in a broadcast that crackled across 10 systems. She is weaponizing nostalgia. Lyra received the summons while she and Jax were camped near a salt lake that mirrored the stars. It came not as a communique or a threat, but as a seed black, smooth, and warm, delivered by a child who ran away before either could speak. When Lyra held it, the seed cracked open, revealing not a plant, but a message written in shimmering glyphs. Return to the spire. Surrender your voice, or the desert will consume you both. Jax wanted to run, not out of fear but caution. Yet Lyra's eyes, usually calm as mercury, burned with something new. Not defiance, but dread. They don't just want me silent, she whispered. They want me empty. And if they take that, they'll turn every memory we've awakened into a weapon. The twist came that night. As Jax prepared their last sandwich, thin slices of grilled tuber, fermented desert plum, and a smear of sun butter aged in a clay jar, he noticed Lyra wasn't beside him. Her bedroll was empty. Only her hair ribbon remained, coiled like a pale serpent on the sand. Panic clawed at his chest until he saw the trail. Faint, almost invisible, leading toward the salt lake. He followed, heart pounding, until he found her standing ankle-deep in the water, her hands raised to the twin moons. But she wasn't alone. Dozens of figures stood in the lake, waist-deep, motionless. They were Vathri, but not as he knew them. Their skin was cracked like dry earth. Their hair had turned to ash. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths sewn shut with threads of silver light. And in each of their hands they held a sandwich identical to Jax's. But these had no fillings, no joy, no memory, just empty bread, crumbling like dust. These are the forgotten, Lyra said without turning. Not erased, not cleansed, abandoned. The Purifiers didn't just delete memories, they trapped them. And now, they're leaking. Jax stepped closer. What do they want? One of us to carry the echo. Before he could ask what that meant, the lake exploded. Not with water, with sound. A scream so vast it tore the night open. It wasn't human, not vathary, not even organic. It was the collective wail of millions of trapped memories, screaming for release. The salt crystals shattered into shards that hung in the air like frozen tears. The dunes behind them collapsed inward, forming a spiral of sand that rose into a towering vortex, screaming with voices. Jax's mother, Lyra's nurse, soldiers, lovers, children, poets, all begging, "Remember me, remember me, remember me." From the vortex stepped Valen. He was no longer a scholar. His body was woven from memory shards, fragments of faces, hands, eyes, stitched together with threads of stolen time. His voice was a chorus of 1,000 souls. "You open the door, human," he intoned. "Now you will be its lock." Jax shoved Lyra behind him. "Run!" But she grabbed his arm. "If I run, they'll use your memories against you. They'll make your mother's voice command you to destroy everything you love. Your sandwiches? They'll turn them into bombs of regret." Valen smiled, a grotesque stretching of too many lips. "The boy thinks he feeds souls, but he only feeds the hunger of the abyss. Give us the heartseed, Lyra, and we will let him live." "The heartseed." Jax turned to her. Lyra's hand went to her chest. "It's not a thing you hold. It's what you feel when you eat something made with love. The core of the echo. The reason it works. Carry it. Because I chose to." Valen lunged. Not with a weapon, with a memory. He hurled a shard of Jax's past. The day he boarded the ship, his father's back turned, refusing to say goodbye. The pain hit Jax like a physical blow. He staggered, clutching his chest, gasping as if drowning in regret. Lyra screamed, not in fear, but in fury. She tore the hair ribbon from her wrist and threw it into the vortex. It unraveled, not into cloth, but into a melody. The same lullaby Jax's mother used to sing. The vortex faltered. The echo soldiers froze. Valen roared, his form flickering, as if the song unraveled his stitches. "You cannot unmake memory with more memory," he shrieked. "But you can redirect it," Lyra said. She grabbed Jax's hand and pressed it to her chest. And in that touch he felt it, the heartseed. Not a stone, not a light, but a pulse. Warm, steady, alive. And it wasn't just hers. It was his mother's, his father's. Every sandwich he'd ever made. Every tear he'd hidden. Every hum in the dark. All of it held in a single beating echo. "Teach them," Lyra whispered. Jax understood. He reached into his pack and pulled out the last sandwich. Not to eat, to offer. He stepped forward, into the eye of the storm, and held it out to the vortex. "Take it," he said, voice shaking but clear. "Taste what it means to be remembered. Not for your pain, but for your joy, for your love, for your quiet moments, for the way you laughed when no one was looking." The vortex stilled. The first echo soldier stepped forward. It was a child, no older than 5, her body made of cracked clay and dried tears. She reached for the sandwich with trembling hands, and ate. Her form softened, her eyes filled with light. She smiled, a real human smile, and dissolved into a shower of golden dust that settled on the salt lake like morning dew. One by one they came, not to fight, to remember, to be fed. Valen tried to stop them, screaming that memory was chaos, that feeling was weakness. But the tide had turned. The desert wasn't consuming them, it was healing. As the last echo faded, Valen collapsed. Not into dust, but into a single shriveled seed. Lyra picked it up. "He'll sleep," she said, "until someone teaches him how to feel again." They left the salt lake that night, but their peace was short-lived. A week later, on the floating market of Zenther, where stalls drifted on clouds of ionized gas, a stranger approached Jax's cart. He was human, rare enough but older, his face lined with decades Jax hadn't lived, his eyes holding a familiarity that made Jax's breath catch. "Jasper," the man said. "You look just like her." Jax froze. "Who are you?" The man set a small, dented thermos on the counter, the same brand his mother used to carry on picnics. "My name is Thomas. I was your father's brother." "Your uncle." Jax's world tilted. "My father. He never mentioned you. Because he thought you were dead," Thomas said gently. "When the colony ship you were on vanished near Vathary space, we lost all contact. We assumed the worst. But then rumors started. A human making memory food. A boy who hums an old Ohio lullaby. I traced you across 6 systems. Jax's hands trembled. Why now? Thomas's eyes turned grim. Because Earth sent us. Not the government. The people. The ones who remember what it means to share a meal. They call it Project Hearth. They want you to come home. Lyra watched silently, her expression unreadable. Home, Jax whispered. Yes, Thomas said. Earth is dying. Not from war or plague but from forgetting. Everyone eats alone. Everyone works in silence. No one sings. No one shares stories over dinner. The world hasn't ended. It's just gone quiet. They need what you do, Jasper. They need you. The twist wasn't the offer. It was the catch. They'll erase her, Thomas added quietly, nodding at Lyra. Not kill her. But she can't come to Earth. Not yet. The fear. They're not ready for someone like her. You'd go alone. Just for a year. Teach them. Remind them. Then, maybe she could follow. Lyra didn't flinch. She simply turned and began packing the cart. Jax stared at her. You're not arguing? I won't cage you in my gratitude, she said, her voice soft but firm. If Earth needs its memory back, then go. Feed them. But remember this. She pressed the heartseed ribbon into his palm. A sandwich made in exile tastes like ash. You must make yours with hope. Jax didn't leave that day. He didn't leave the next. But the choice hung between them like a storm cloud. Then, on the 3rd night, the sky burned. Not with stars, but with ships. Not Vathery. Not human. Something older. The Obsidian Choir. A forgotten order of memory hunters who believed all emotion was cosmic error. They descended in vessels shaped like broken harps. Their bodies fused with machines that consumed memory, leaving victims hollow but fully functional. Perfect soldiers, perfect workers, perfect slaves. They had heard of the heartseed, and they wanted it not to use but to silence forever. Their leader, a being of shifting glass and shadow named Kayles, a name that made Jax flinch only because it sounded too close to forbidden names he'd once avoided, landed before the cart and spoke without moving its mouth. You are a glitch in the universe's design. Love is entropy. Memory is decay. You will be unmade. Jax stood tall. I'm just a sandwich maker. Kayles raised a hand and ripped the memory of Jax's first kiss from his mind. Jax screamed. He couldn't feel it, couldn't recall the girl's name, couldn't remember if it was sweet or awkward. But he knew something precious had been torn away. Lyra stepped forward. Touch him again, and I will feed you every sorrow in the galaxy. Kayles laughed, a sound like shattering ice. You think you can protect him? You are a child playing with fire. The heartseed is not yours to wield. It's not mine, Lyra said. It's ours. She turned to Jax. Do you trust me? He didn't hesitate. Yes. She kissed him. Not on the lips, but on the forehead, just as she had at the spire. And in that kiss, she gave him back the memory that had been stolen. Not just that kiss. Every one. Every sandwich. Every tear. Every hum. And then, she gave him more. The memory of her mother's last breath. The taste of snow on her first journey off-world. The feeling of sand between her toes the first time she laughed. She poured her soul into him. And Jax, human, fragile, brilliant Jax, began to glow. Not with power. With fullness. Kayles recoiled. Impossible. Humans cannot hold that much memory. It will shatter you. Jax smiled. Then I'll go out like a supernova. He reached into the cart and pulled out a sandwich, empty bread at first. But as he held it, it filled. Not with ingredients. With moments. His childhood. Lyra's grief. Thomas's hope. Valen's regret. The Echo Child's joy. All of it woven into a single, perfect wrap. He offered it to Kayles. Eat, Jax said. And remember what it means to be more than a machine. Kayles hesitated. Then took a bite. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the glass being shuttered. Cracks formed across its form, not of damage but of awakening. A single tear, real and warm, fell from its faceless head. I forgot what rain felt like. It whispered. The Obsidian Choir ships flickered. Their engines sputtered. One by one, they powered down. Their crews stepping out, dazed, weeping, touching their own faces as if meeting themselves for the first time. Kayles bowed. You are not a glitch. You are a beginning. And they left. Not in defeat. In reverence. Thomas watched it all, eyes wet. You can't go back, he finally said. Earth isn't ready for this. Jax looked at Lyra. Maybe Earth isn't the only home that needs remembering. And so they stayed. Not on one world. Not in one market. They became wanderers of the heart, cart rattling across dunes and clouds and asteroid fields. Jax's sandwiches growing more complex, more profound, each one a capsule of shared humanity, or Vatheriness, or Zentheriness, or whatever soul needed stitching that day. Lyra no longer just remembered. She translated, turning alien emotions into flavors Jax could replicate, creating dishes that made stone-skinned warriors weep for their lost cubs, or made hive minds laugh at the absurdity of being alone. And sometimes, on quiet nights, Jax would hum his mother's lullaby, and the stars would hum back, because somewhere out there, in a universe no longer silent, someone was always listening, always remembering, always hungry for more. Years passed like desert winds, soft at first, then relentless, then finally, gentle again. Jax and Lyra never settled. But they didn't need to. Their cart, now patched with 100 different fabrics from 100 different worlds, had become a beacon, not of power, not of empire, but of presence. Children grew up knowing the sound of Jax's whistle before breakfast. Elders saved their last credits not for medicine, but for one of his raps, just to taste the memory of their first love. On the frozen moon of Nalt, a group of silent monks wept for the first time in 3 centuries after eating a sandwich filled with pickled starfruit and sun butter aged under a dying star. They called it the taste of belonging. The Vatheri Empire, once rigid and cold, now held monthly memory feasts, where citizens brought old photographs, letters, and songs, and shared them over food made by traveling artisans trained in Jax's quiet way. The purifiers? Some joined the kitchens. Others became storytellers, their voices no longer sharp with control, but warm with wonder. Earth did not fall, nor did it rise. Simply remembered. Thomas came back, not to take Jax home, but to bring his mother's old recipe book, its pages brittle with time, its margins filled with her handwriting. Love is the only spice that never runs out. He placed it on the cart, beside the heartseed ribbon, now woven into the awning's fringe. Lyra, who had once been afraid of her own heart, now taught children how to make sandwiches with their eyes closed, just to feel the rhythm of care. And Jax? He still hummed. Every morning, before the suns rose, he'd stand by the cart, wrap a simple sandwich, bread, sun butter, radish, and place it on the counter untouched, for whoever needed it. One day, a little girl with purple skin and white hair, no taller than Lyra had been, stood before the cart. Her eyes were liquid mercury. She didn't speak, just looked at the sandwich. Jax smiled. "Any leftover?" she asked. He nodded. He handed her the one he'd made that morning. She took it, held it to her chest. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the desert wind carried a lullaby, not from Jax's lips, but from the sky itself. The stars sang back. And somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, everything was whole again. They didn't live happily ever after. They lived, quietly, beautifully, one sandwich at a time.